Okay, so this is actually going to be a really simple little lesson, but I think it's important. Hopefully you're well into your process of making this guy and making him run. Now, I made the shape of this guy really simple. And the reason why I did that was just, for time's sake, but also to illustrate another point. So we've got the guy running here, right? Okay, if I double click and go into the symbol, oh, there we go. Takes a while. You can see I've got this run cycle. But, there's some odd things that are, well, not odd, but there's some stuff happening inside this guy that, doesn't look very good. And the biggest being these massive gaps that are happening between the joints. Now, part of that is because I don't think my, if I were to click on this knee, look at where my joint is. It should really be up here. So that's my first major problem, is that the joints for both the legs are not in a really good place. You can see that neither one of those are good. But my elbows and my arms are okay. But what you're really seeing here is the fact that, well, he's made of rectangles, right? I mean, it's not going to look very good. So what we want to do is we want to start adding some stuff to our guy here to make him look a little bit better. And there's a couple of things that we're going to do. One, we're going to add clothes. This is a good thing, okay? And then the second thing we're going to do is we're going to round out off the joints. Now, if you get to a point where like where I am right now, where you're noticing that as your guy's moving that the joints are all messed up, like my knees. I'm sorry to say this, but you can't go and fix it in each keyframe. It doesn't seem to work very well, because then the joints will be floating, and it also seems to affect other joints. So if you start animating the joints, the knees and the ankles go weird and stuff like that. At least that's been my experience. So what you need to do if you get to this point is you need to start over with the run cycle, which actually isn't that big of a deal because it's only 4 keyframes. So, what I would do right now is I would honestly just hold the command key, I'd drag the mouse, click and drag the mouse, right click, and I'd clear all the poses so that I have one pose. And now I've got to go back in here with the free transform tool, and I've got to, maneuver things back the way they should be. Yeah, my ankle is all off too. And kind of get this looking more like what I would want it to really be. And that just takes a little bit of, just getting things set back up, kind of getting them kind of set in with each other a little bit better, and then retesting it before I actually make the run cycle. But we're not going to go there. I'm not going to do the whole thing. But see, so right now I've looked, I've kind of retested things. I just want to make sure everything is where I want it to be. And then I'm going to test it. I'm going to take the selection tool and I'm actually going to test it to make sure, okay, see now the joints are actually bending where they should be. But as you can see here, okay, it still doesn't look very good, does it? Because I've got these square ends. So what I need to do is go into the symbols and I'm going to edit them. So we'll just do the upper body here, just for the sake of simplicity for the demo. We're going to work on the arms here. So all I really need to do is just go in and double click on. Now sometimes you might have troubles double clicking on a symbol, but I find that sometimes if because it'll want to click on the bones. So what you can do is if you just double click right on the outside of the border real fast, it'll get you into the symbol. And the nice thing about doing it this way is now I can see how it's going to relate to everything else. If I can go over to the library and find my upper arm and double click on that, but the problem is when I do that, you'll notice that it gets rid of all the other shapes and symbols that are inside my running man. If that happens, I don't really have a good context now to edit the shape. Does this make sense? So I can't really see what I'm doing. I mean, I can do it, but I just don't know how it's going to relate to everything else. So I just think it's a lot easier to go in here and then just zoom in and then just carefully double click on a symbol, and there you go. It also may help, by the way, if you have your armature here set to solid. It's going to be a lot harder to click on the shape or the symbol because it's going to think you're trying to click on all these bones. This is where just clicking once on the armature, the timeline, going over here to options in the properties and changing that to a line will give you a lot more space. And now you can double click. So if it's not allowing you to do that, you need to take the bones down. So anyway, let's just take a look at these and start altering. We use the same principles that we did in Illustrator. We're just going to change the outline. So here I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to grab the points, and I can take the points. I'm going to change them a little bit. Now sometimes I've noticed when I'm doing these demos, it's really frustrating. It doesn't actually show me in real time what's happening. But that's okay. Well, you can see what's going to happen. So now I'm going to go here, and again, I can convert the tools. Okay, and I can break the handles to give myself more of a corner point, you know. So now what I can do is I can just sit here and I can start creating a rounded shape here on the end of the upper arm. Now I can also then get out of that, go back to my forearm, and do very similar thing. Move this one back a little bit. And a lot of it's going to take some testing. So let's break the handles here. But now you can see that just by, you know, kind of stretching these out, I'm creating a much smoother appearance for my arm. And if you want to really see what it's going to look like, you can kind of see, because notice it's also changing the back arm because they're the same symbol. So that's an important principle to understand, is when you start to edit a symbol, if that symbol has two copies, it's going to edit that symbol on the other side as well. So now let's just take a look and see what the, oops, I didn't really want to go all the way into scene one. Let's just see what this looks like now as he's moving. So if I just grab that, it may not be perfect. Of course it's not going to be. But at the same time, I think that looks a lot better, don't you, than just having square ends like at the knees. So take a look. If I just move his foot here. All right. So if I just click off that for a second. So look at the transition now in the elbow versus the transition in the knee. That looks a lot better, doesn't it? I mean, it just makes a lot more sense. It looks better. I think it just is better. Now, some of you may be going, yeah, Mr. Weisbrod is great, but you've just still got this really ugly black line here. Ah, yes, you're very correct. That is a problem. So one of the things that you can do is you can eliminate the stroke around the object in certain places. So watch. If I double click on this, and this is really kind of cool, this is the way Flash handles this. I can select very specific, oops, I have to convert it from a drawing object, no. Double click again. Okay, so if you just go into the symbol, if you can't actually see what I just did there, selected the stroke and the interior fill. If you can't do that, you just need to double click one more time and it goes to a drawing object. But what I can do here now is I can just select a section of the shape, and I can hit the delete key. Now I probably don't want to take a chunk out of his elbow there, but I do want to get rid of the stroke. And this is where Flash does something really cool. It'll allow you to delete just a portion of the outline of an object. So then what I can do is if I take and I make this selection like this, then I can hold the Shift key down and unselect what I selected in the fill part and then delete that. So now let's see what that looks like. So it's never going to be quite perfect. I think I should probably delete a little bit more, but it's going to look a lot better than it did. So double click, just maybe select a little bit more like, oops, double click again, select a little bit more like that, then I Shift select so that it doesn't get the fill anymore, and let's see what that looks like. And then if I don't like the way it looks, I can undo it. The other thing I could do is extend the upper arm a little bit, or the lower arm I mean, because it's still got a full outline, and then that will make this look a lot better. Oh, there we go, yeah. Now it looks kind of weird here. So I'll go back in and I might try and rearrange this so that it's a little bit less, I don't know, change the angles a little bit so that it blends in more with the upper arm, that kind of thing. It's going to be a little bit of experimentation. You're going to have to try something, you might have to undo it, but there, that looks a lot better, doesn't it? And then this line here, as his arm comes up, that's not a big deal because it just looks like a crease. It looks like a fold, right? So it's really not that big of a deal. So now let's give this guy a shirt. Okay, let's just give the guy a shirt. So you get the idea of how to make the joints rounded. This is good. You should do it on the wrist. You'd want to do it on the neck, the shoulder. Obviously, his body shouldn't have quite that square appearance. Okay, people aren't square like that. You can figure all that out on your own, I'm sure. But now what we really need to do is we need to give him a shirt. Now let me say one other thing about this. If your joints were all perfect and you're going in and you're adding clothes, you should not have to delete your run cycle. So don't think you have to delete the run cycle. The only time you have to delete the run cycle is if the joints are offset. Okay, so I don't want everybody to think that you all have to do this. So now we're going to actually give this guy shirt color. So first I'm going to start with the chest. I'm going to just double click in here. And I'm actually going to keep my under shape here, this square. I can round it off and do all sorts of stuff. But to give him a shirt, we'll just make new layers. So I'm just going to take this layer and I'll just call this the base layer or the skin layer, whatever you wanted to call it. Doesn't matter. It's not really skin. He's ash gray, but that's okay. And I'm going to make a new layer. So instead of replacing the old layer, I'm going to make new layers over top. And so for this guy, we're just going to start with another square. And here I'm going to turn off the stroke completely, I think, for this. Maybe I want it on. We'll keep it on for now. And let's give him a red shirt. Nice and simple. Just use this pure red that's right here. Or if I wanted something a little bit less, so obvious, I can click it here. Or you can also go here and you can select your colors, okay, with the color wheel here, which is pretty cool. Whatever. I'll just use these because it's easier for now. Okay. Now, so I'm just going to draw a box here, and obviously, something's wrong. He's angled, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to angle it a little bit. I can move it. I can also take the white arrow tool and I can move points in to to match up to with the rest of the thing, and I could make it look like his shirt is flowing out a little bit more. Whatever. You can add wrinkles. We could go as complicated as we wanted for this. And then I could give him pants and a belt and all that sort of stuff. So let's just call this T-shirt. Like that. Let's do another one. Yeah, let's give him the start of pants. So let's do like some blue jeans here. No, that's too purpley. That's too bright. Yeah, that's decent. So then again, I'm just going to start with a simple shape. I'm on a separate layer. That's the important thing. Now I can rotate it a little bit. I can go in with the white arrow tool and I can, you know, manipulate different pieces of it to make it look better, that kind of thing. I could probably round off his butt, give him a, you know, that kind of a thing. And then what I'll probably do here is I'll probably honestly give him a, take the jeans, and I'm going to drag that layer underneath the t-shirt layer, and that's going to look a lot better already. See? So now let's go out of this and look at our running man. Well, now he needs sleeves. So I'm going to go in here, double click on the upper arm. Come on. Oh, black arrow tool. Double click on the upper arm, I get into the symbol, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to create I'm just going to name this the base layer, and then I'm going to add a new layer here, and I'm going to just take my red, which I think was this red color. And here's the thing. Some people will do this. Watch. I want you to see a mistake. They'll click on the color, and they'll go down here, and they'll click. But look at the red that it's going to get. Is that the red color that was in the other symbol? No. And the reason why it's not is because when you go into a symbol, Flash fades out all the other symbols. But when you test the color, it actually tests the color that you really are seeing, not the color that's actually inside that other symbol. So I have to remember which color I used. Because if I do this and then draw a box here for a sleeve, watch what it looks like when I go out of the symbol. Oh, you see what it did? It actually tested the faded color that was in all the other symbols because of the way Flash does this. So what I really need to do is just I'll click on this object and I'll just give it the real color that I did. And when I get out of the symbol, you can see that things look a lot better. And now he's actually got short sleeves. I can go back in and I can make them a little longer, which I think would probably be wise. So I'm going to select that and that point with the white arrow tool and bring this down a little bit here. I can also take the convert point tool and we're going to convert. Give this a rounded feel to it. I can also do what I was doing before, where I can take the, I can double click until I get in the drawing object, and now I can highlight part of the shoulder, click like that to get rid of the fill, and then just delete that section of the stroke. So now when I go out into the running man here, he's looking a lot better than he was just a few minutes ago, isn't he? And the other thing that I don't really like is his arm is just like totally stick straight. So I can go back in here to and turn off my upper layer, which is my shirt layer. And I can go back in my base layer, and instead of, I can add a point and give him some muscles. Use the white arrow tool to kind of make his arm up a little thicker. Let's see if that still covers by the shirt, so that's good. And you can just see that now it looks a little bit better there, you know, than it did before. And the cool thing is that because I'm doing this with symbols that are copied, my front arm and my back arm end up being the same because I'm again using symbols that are copied and giving them layers. The important thing is that as you start to do this, that inside the symbol you put clothing and stuff like that on its separate and individual layers. Just like in Photoshop where I was trying to teach you always use a new layer. If you don't do that, you'll find that your ability to change things in the future, let's say you don't like the shirt or you want to move it a little bit, if you put it in the same layer as the original shape, you're going to be in trouble, because now you've lost the ability to go ahead and maybe make some changes later on that you might have wanted to. So everything on its own separate layer would be a really good start for everybody to do. The other thing is, and of course what I would do now is I'd move down and I'd give his legs the blue color. I would give his, you know, him shoes or whatever, that kind of a thing, so that everything, you know, makes sense and will look a lot better. Don't worry about facial features yet. We're going to talk about faces and how you can animate faces a little bit later. So right now I just want you to think about, you know, his hands. Those are kind of bad hands. Can you give him a fist? How would that look? How would you draw fingers? You know, look at a fist from the outside. You don't really see the fingers too much, but you see knuckles. Using the add points and the convert point tools and stuff like that, could you change those circle hands into something a little bit better? And the answer is, of course you can. So that's what we're going to be doing. This running guy, we're actually going to take this running guy, is not going to end up being just a simple animation. We're going to actually create a more complicated animation piece by piece. Now that you got a guy running, we're going to think about, why is he running? What's he running from? You're going to have a fun little thing there. And what is he wearing? What is he looking like? That kind of stuff. So you want to start really taking this guy and giving him clothes and a character and that kind of a stuff. Does that make sense for what we're doing today? And in the future? All right then.